All right, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Tonight is Monday, February 13th, 2023. This is a special meeting of the Board of Education for the School District of Waukesha to consider requests for modifications to the district boundaries. Sue, would you please read the notice of the hearing? Thank you.
Please be advised that the Waukesha Board of Education will hear requests to alter school district property at a special Board meeting of Education meeting beginning at 6 p.m. on Monday, February 13th, 2023 in the boardroom of the Lindholm Building, 222 Maple Avenue, Waukesha, Wisconsin. The purpose of the meeting is to consider petitions to attach and to detach as follows. Thomas G. Williams, representing property in the town of Genesee, and Angela Papp and Katie Valdovinos, representing parcels and undividable fractional ownership outlots contained in, around, and next to Black Forest Knoll, Summit Lawn Estates, and the Shire.
Thank you. The first petition that we'll address tonight is from Thomas G. Williams. The territories that are being petitioned, the descriptions of those properties, the description of the property is provided in the board packets. The properties are on the boundary between the School District of Waukesha and the Kettle Moraine School District. I'd like to review the DPI process. Although this meeting is informal, the rules are formalized at the state level. The process involves both our district and Kettle Moraine acting on this request. If both of the districts deny the request, there is no ability for appeal. If both districts approve the request, the detachment is completed. If one district approves and the other denies the request, an appeal may be made by the petitioners to the Department of Public Instruction. Should we read the statutory criteria as well? Yeah, okay. All right, board members, please refer to your board packet for the following information that I'll share with the community. The geographical and topographical characteristics of the affected school districts, including the estimated travel time to and from school for pupils in the school districts, is provided in your packets. The educational needs of all of the children residing in the affected school districts, the educational programs currently offered by each affected school district, and the ability and commitment of each school district to meet those needs and continue to offer those educational programs. If the territory is proposed to be detached from one school district and attached to an adjoining school district, then whether the proposed detachment will have any adverse effect on the program currently offered by the school district from which the territory is proposed to be detached, including both curricular and extracurricular aspects of that program. Also included is the testimony of and written statements filed by the residents of the affected school districts, the estimated fiscal effect of the proposed reorganization on the affected school districts, including the effect of the apportionment of assets and liabilities, whether the proposed reorganization will make any part of a school district's territories non-contiguous, the socioeconomic level and racial composition of the pupils who reside or will reside in territory proposed to be detached from one school district and attached to an adjoining school district, or in a school district proposed to be dissolved. The proportion of the pupils who reside in such territory who are children at risk as defined under statute 118.153, parentheses 91, parentheses A, and the effect that the pupils described in this paragraph will have on the present and future socioeconomic level and racial composition of the affected school districts and on the proportion of the affected school districts' enrollments that will be children at risk. And finally, other appropriate factors. Now I'll review the petitions. The petition to alter school district boundaries will be read by our board clerk, Carrie Kozlowski.
We, the undersigned owners, represent 50% owners or a majority of the electors owning or residing in the territory described below. File this petition to detach this described territory from the Kettle Moraine School District and to attach it to the School District of Waukesha. 1 northeast 1/4 of the southeast 1/4 section 15 and the northwest 1/4 of the southwest 1/4 of section 14, Township 6 North, Range 18 East, Town of Genesee, Waukesha County, Wisconsin. Really all of the GNT 1495996 00113.825 acres, Waukesha School District, GNT 1495996-002-1.745 acres, Kettle Moraine School District.
Thank you. All right, Dr. Cook, would you please present the properties and school district boundaries under discussion?
Yes, if you open up your packet, we provided just a couple aerial maps of the area. We're looking at 1.75 acres in the request to make this property wholly in the school district. The third map that you see there, you see the highlighted portion of property outlined in yellow right along Hillside Road.
Are there any questions or clarification on the property boundaries? Okay. Before taking testimony, I would like to review the rules applicable to this hearing. This is an informal hearing, but we will record all of the information presented. Each person offering information will come to the podium, sign the registration sheet if you have not already done so. Please state your name, address, and school district. Speak distinctly so that we can be sure that your information is recorded. The procedure is to hear from the proponents and opponents of the petition. The proponents, those people asking the school board to transfer the territory, will be held first. Following the proponents, the opponents of the petition, those people who do not want the territory transferred, will be heard. Following the initial presentation by the proponents and opponents, there will be a short time allotted for rebuttal and/or summation by both sides in the same order as before. We now have an opportunity for the proponents of the petition to speak. As each proponent speaks, I would ask you to first state your name, address, and school district of residence, and to please sign the registration sheet if you've not already. There will be no time limit for speaking. However, as chair, I will rule if too much time is used. We have one proponent of the petition that's registered to speak tonight. That is Thomas G. Williams. Mr. Williams, welcome.
Good evening. Thanks for having me and having a special session. My name's Thomas G. Williams, W292 South 3765 Hillside Road, Waukesha, Wisconsin 53189. I am in the Waukesha School District. I don't know where somebody said that the property was on Hillside Road, but it's off of Highway D and Betcher Road. So I don't know if that. I don't know if you're going to pull up the CSM that I had performed, but that's a good visual. I am the owner of the property along with my brother. It's owned by Warren Farms, Inc. Warren Farms, Inc., if I could give you 2 cents of history, was established in 1848 when Wisconsin was still a territory. We're 175 years old. We used to deliver milk to all of Waukesha. Very, very long-standing history. And I'm petitioning today to change the boundary because it straddles a piece of property that we have on the farm. The farm's approximately about 500 acres, which we're definitely the largest landowner in the township of Genesee. But it is encumbered when you have straddling school districts. So I've taken it upon myself to see if we can't figure out a way to put it all into Waukesha and not have 1.74 acres in Kettle Moraine out of the 15 acres in question. It just seems to be smart business. Candace White at the county of Waukesha, she kind of carried a pretty good email to say this just makes sense. You know, straddling school districts, there's setback issues, and it isn't what you want. And this isn't a very large parcel. And the 1.74 acres in Kettle Moraine, you know, we have a 5-acre minimum if you were going to even build. So it's really kind of an anomaly on the very west end of this property. The property is bounded by the railroad track on the north side. On the south side is Highway D, or Warren Way as you would know it. There's a 50-foot setback off the highway. I actually don't know the setback off of a railroad track, but there's just really, it's just kind of just this little sliver. And I don't know if you have that CSM in your packet, but I performed a certified survey map because I wanted to extract that particular piece of property from about a 200 acre parcel of property. It was just in the wrong, it didn't make sense. So I pulled that and did a CSM so that Highway D is now our dividing line. To the south is the farm, and to the north is this parcel. So I would tell you what I'm trying to do is just basically clean up the existing boundaries. So, I'm just looking to try and get you guys, Waukesha, to own the entire 15 acres and not have Kettle Moraine own 1.74 acres. There will never be homes built on the property. I couldn't tell you how long it's been part of the farm, but I'd guess 100 years. And it's always been ag. It's beans and corn, as you would know it. There aren't a lot of working farms left in Waukesha County, but we are one. We also run a pheasant operation, if you're familiar with Warren Valley Sportsman's Club. We raise 35,000 pheasants. That is not involved with this particular piece of property. We do not do any pheasant hunting on that. It's just separate. So the reason I'm here is really just to kind of say, the taxes on this piece of property that Kettle Moraine is receiving is $5.55, which is obviously not a lot of money. So I'm just trying to get it all into your corner and move it out of the Kettle Moraine district. But there will never be residential development on that property.
Thank you. If you can just stay there for a minute, let me just verify that there are no, are there any opponents that wish to speak against this petition tonight? We did not have anybody register. Okay, are there any questions for Mr. Williams? And should there be some clarification on the property? I think Hillsdale, yeah, thank you.
You can see my cursor move. You can see my cursor move. It's this triangle of land right here.
At this time, if the board has any questions for the petitioner, you can ask them. Do you have any questions for us? Okay.
No, you're on the receiving end.
Yeah. All right. So at this time, then, I will close the public presentations on the petition. Seeing no deliberations, we will now review the decision alternatives, and let me explain the decisions that we have for the board tonight. One would be to deny the request for transfer of the territory described in the petition. The other would be to grant the request for transfer of the territory described in the petition. To the board members, at this time, I would entertain a motion, and I would ask that you read the entire motion for the record, and then we'll review how we vote in response to that motion. Mrs. Kozlowski.
I move to grant the transfer of the territories as listed in the petition identified as Thomas G. Williams, property in Town of Genesee, that the reorganization requested in the petition filed on January 10th, 2023 be granted, and an order entered detaching the territory described in said petition from the Kettle Moraine School District and attaching said territory to the School District of Waukesha.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Moore. Thank you. So let me just verify then to the board members. A yes vote means that you support the attachment request, and a no vote means that you do not support the attachment request. A yes vote means that you support the attachment request, and a no vote means that you do not. Yes, sir.
Is there an opportunity for discussion?
We can, yeah. I apologize. I passed over the deliberation
Okay.
because I thought I entertained that as part of the question and answer, and I do apologize for that.
No problem.
We do have a motion on the table, but I think it would be appropriate if there's discussion.
We can always discuss them.
Thank you. We all know this, but the last census, I think, showed that there's 94,000 people within the geographical boundaries of the School District of Waukesha from 2020. I guess to the administration, if you're able to answer this, if appropriate, is there any detriment to the district to attaching this piece of property to our school district?
No.
No. My sense is it adds a very small tax base.
Yes.
Okay, possibly $5 or so,
Yes.
but okay. But there's no detriment to the district, so, okay, thank you.
Anything else? All right, feel free to complete your ballot. Thank you.
Thank you. Make it worse.
The motion to grant is approved.
Thank you. All right, as a final piece of business, we need to then adopt the resolution that authorizes issuance of an order of reorganization. As part of the process, a motion then is needed to adopt a resolution authorizing that order. Mrs. Kozlowski?
I move to adopt the resolution authorizing the issuance of the order of, the territories as listed in the petition identified as Thomas G. Williams property in the town of Genesee.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Como. Thank you. Sue, would you take the roll call vote, please?
Carrie Kozlowski,
Aye.
Karen Robertson,
Aye.
Corey Montiel,
Aye.
Patrick McCaffrey.
Aye.
Joseph Como.
Aye.
Mark Borowski, Anthony Zenobia,
Aye.
Raquel Moore,
Aye.
Kelly Piasek.
Aye, passes 8-0. Thank you, Mr. Williams.
Thank you, folks.
All right. Anybody need a second? Good, okay. All right, the next petition that we will address tonight is from Angela Papp and Katie Valdovinos. The petition to alter school district boundaries will be read by Board Clerk Carrie Kozlowski.
We, the undersigned owners, represent 50% of the owners or a majority of the electors owning or residing in the territory described below. File this petition to detach this described territory from the School District of Waukesha and to attach it to the Elmbrook School District. Black Forest Knoll and Summit Lawn Estates subdivision as described in the attached list of properties to be included.
Dr. Cook, would you please present the property boundaries, please, for us?
Certainly. Are you connected?
No,
Okay.
I just disconnected though.
Okay, thank you. Up on the screen and in your packet, we will go through and talk about the properties and the location. So if you look at the geographical and topographical characteristics of the affected school districts, including the estimated travel time, the first we gave you is the map, topographical map of the area. We did pick the address of one of the individuals making the appeal, just to give perspective. The boundaries of this property, the area shaded in green is School District of Waukesha area. The areas shaded in blue are the Elmbrook Schools properties. The area highlighted in yellow represents the subdivisions that we're discussing this evening. To give perspective, we are just showing distances to our school locations. Hillcrest Elementary School is the nearest elementary school, 2.9 mile drive, 7 minutes approximate from the subdivision to Hillcrest. Brookfield Elementary School is a 2.1 mile drive, about 5 minutes. You can see that on this map. Horning Middle School in the School District of Waukesha is 3.1 miles from the subdivision, approximately an 8-minute drive. And Wisconsin Hills Middle School and the Elmbrook Schools is a 1.2 mile drive, approximately 3 minutes. And then Waukesha North High School is 8.1 miles, 14-minute drive. And Brookfield Central is a 2.6 mile, almost 6-minute drive. So those are the areas that we're referring to.
Can I add a clarification on that, on the map? Okay.
Can we hold for clarification by the board members first, please? Any questions? During your comments, if you have concerns about the proposed boundaries, you can address those. Thank you. All right, please bear with me as I'm going to repeat some things that I said earlier, since this is a separate hearing. Before taking testimony, I'd like to review the rules applicable to this hearing. This is an informal hearing, but we will record all of the information presented. Each person offering information will come to the podium, sign the registration sheet if you've not already done so. Please state your name, address, and school district. Speak distinctly so that we can be sure that your information is recorded. The procedure is to hear from the proponents and opponents of the petition. The proponents, those people asking the school board to transfer the territory, will be held first. Following the proponents, the opponents of the petition, those people who do not want the territory transferred, will be heard. Following the initial presentation by the proponents and opponents, there will be a short time allotted for rebuttal and/or summation by both sides in the same order as before. We'll begin with proponents of the petition. As each proponent speaks, I would ask you to first state your name, address, and school district of residence, and to please sign the registration sheet if you have not already done so. There will be no time limit for speaking. However, as chair, I will rule if too much time is used. We have several proponents this evening, so and we have some opponents, so we'll try to plan time accordingly. I currently have 6 proponents registered to speak tonight. And do we also have a presentation by the petitioners? And are they also registered to speak?
I have my sheet here. And I also have eight testimonies on my, that I got emailed to me that I wanted to share.
Close the door.
The door has to remain open.
Next to the lawn.
You're Angela? Okay. All right, you can go ahead.
Okay. My name is Angela Paff, and I live at 945 Clare Court in Brookfield with my husband and two sons, and we attend the Waukesha School District. We are petitioning today to detach from the School District of Waukesha and attach to the Elmbrook School District. We attend Hillcrest and Banting. Hillcrest is our local school, and we attend Banting for the dual language program. I'm petitioning with my partner, Katie Valdivinos. She's not here, she's in Mexico. We couldn't plan around it. So what we're going to do, she has two children as well, and they go to Banting in the dual language program too. So since she's not here, what we decided to do instead is record our PowerPoint presentation. So she'll be speaking through that. We both put a lot of work into this petition, and we just want to thank you for listening to us and being here, and we would welcome any questions that you have or comments. And just a reminder, I don't know if you know this or not, but this is our third time for our community to petition for this. And it's personally my first. My house became available in our neighborhood because the last time they petitioned, they lost, and she moved. And that happens a lot in our community. So this will be the third time. Over 85% of the community signed the petition. We have around 5 or 6 vacant houses in our neighborhood, so I couldn't get those. But just to kind of share that information with you. And just for clarification, we aren't doing this because the Shire won their appeal. I was already collecting signatures well before that, and I knew I had to go to the Shire to get signatures to be contiguous. And when I went there, the first door I knocked on, the gentleman said, "We are already in it. We won our appeal in July." And he had just made an old-fashioned for himself, and he gave it to me because he saw the look in my eye that I couldn't believe that information. So he shared that story, and I only share it with you because this is our story in our community. We aren't doing this because somebody else got it done, and we're not trying to piggyback. We've been feeling this way for several years now. Again, thank you for listening. I would like to play a video, if that's all right, of the PowerPoint slide deck.
Can you just give us an idea about how long the video will be?
30 minutes, and it covers everything.
Okay. We'll do this first, because I would like to hear from the other community members as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you want me to play it?
Yes, I think that was the guidance that you were given, that you could provide a video.
To hear more background on our petition today. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to hear more background on our petition today. If I have learned nothing else in preparing this petition, it's that representing your community as a Board of Education member is a thankless job. We truly appreciate all of your hard work. My name is Katie Valdivinos, and I live at 880 Russet Drive in the town of Brookfield. I have 2 children, one in 1st grade and one in 5th grade at Banting Elementary in the dual language program. We have truly enjoyed our elementary years in the school district of Waukesha. But as my oldest approaches middle school next year, we've spent quite a bit of time determining which Waukesha school will best meet his educational needs. We finally decided on STEM Academy, which is 25 minutes from home. With 2 parents working outside the home, figuring out the logistics of getting him to and from school has been daunting, overwhelming, and honestly unnecessary, given our neighborhood's proximity to the Elmbrook School District. It is these feelings that prompted me to partner with a neighbor to attempt to detach our neighborhood from School District of Waukesha and into the Elmbrook School District. As I'm sure you're all aware, there are several criteria which must be considered to detach an area from one school district and attach it to another. Today we will talk through the specific criteria of geography, contiguous territory, educational needs, and financial effect. The first one we'll tackle is geography. Our neighborhood is located in the town of Brookfield, just west of Brookfield Road, between Gebhardt and Blue Mound Road. We are one neighborhood south of the Shire who successfully petitioned into the Elmbrook District in 2022. Our neighborhood includes approximately 108 homes. This aerial view shows our proximity to Wisconsin Hills Middle School. It is less than 1 mile from our home and part of the Elmbrook District. Here you can see Wisconsin Hills. This is Brookfield Road. And then this is the road that leads into our subdivision. It's Black Forest Road. So we are talking about all of the homes back in here. This map shows our neighborhood in relation to the schools we attend within the Waukesha School District. Our neighborhood is here. Our neighborhood elementary is Hillcrest. Our middle school is Horning. And then our high school is Waukesha North. We are the furthest eastern edge of the district. Brookfield Road is the boundary line. These long distances result in long bus times and a commute that requires us to pass through more than one dangerous intersection. Further, we are not part of the Waukesha community. There are many landmarks, retail areas, parks, schools, and other community resources that I am not familiar with because we do not live in Waukesha. In comparison, this map shows our neighborhood in relation to the schools we likely would attend in the Elmbrook School District. On this map, our neighborhood is here, right in the corner. Our neighborhood middle school would likely be Wisconsin Hills because we are located within walking distance less than 1 mile. Our high school would be Brookfield Central. I'm not sure which elementary school we would be at. It would either be Brookfield Elementary or Swanson Elementary. All of these schools would result in shorter bus times. Some of the schools we could even walk or ride bikes to. I am very familiar with all of these schools as they are in my neighborhood. My kids play at the playgrounds at both Swanson and Brookfield Elementary. We ride our bikes to the Brookfield Farmers Market many summer Saturdays. I've never been to Hillcrest, our neighborhood Waukesha Elementary School. I also have no idea where Waukesha North High School is. In the almost 11 years that I have lived in my home, I have never passed Waukesha North during my travels through Waukesha. This slide puts these maps side by side so you can see the disparities in the distance between the two school districts. I'd like you to note the scale of these maps is different, which demonstrates how far our neighborhood is from our Waukesha schools. So let's look at how these distances translate into travel time. I have not included a slide on elementary schools because I don't know which elementary school our children would attend in the Elmbrook district. For middle school, we are about 4.5 miles from our neighborhood middle school, Horning. It takes approximately 10 minutes to travel there by car, yet it's a 40-minute bus ride. Again, Wisconsin Hills Middle School is walking distance from my home. It's a 3-minute commute from door to door. It's anticipated that it would be likely a 10-minute bus ride. Because of our proximity, we would likely be one of the last homes picked up and one of the first dropped off. I also would feel comfortable letting my middle schooler walk or ride his bike to Wisconsin Hills. Let's compare the effect that these travel times will have on students. So Horning Middle School starts at 7:30. Approximately 40 minutes on the bus means a bus pickup time around 6:45. I'm not sure if any of you have children, but mine take about 30 minutes to get ready in the morning. So that means a wake-up time of around 6:15. That puts our daily time on the bus traveling to and from Horning at 1 hour and 20 minutes. and our weekly time on the bus at 6 hours and 20 minutes. I ask you, does this long bus ride and early wake-up time put our students in the best position to learn? So let's contrast that with Wisconsin Hills. Wisconsin Hills starts a little bit earlier at 7:18. Bus pickup time would likely be around 7:05. Student wake-up time would be around 6:35. Daily time on the bus is 20 minutes. Weekly time on the bus is 1 hour and 40 minutes. That's 4.5 hours difference. I can think of so many things that I would do with an extra 4.5 hours in my week. And I can think of so many extra activities my kids would do to fill that time as well. Our Waukesha High School, Waukesha North, is about 8.5 miles away. An estimated 45-minute bus ride or 25 minutes by car. Our Elmbrook High School would be Brookfield Central, which is about 2.5 miles away. An estimated 20 to 25-minute bus ride or 5 minutes by car. At some point during their high school careers, these students will be driving. On our commute to Brookfield Central, we pass through one stoplight. It's the stoplight at Gebhardt and Calhoun. It is not a very busy intersection. In order to get to any Waukesha school, we need to go through the intersection at Blue Mountain Barker, which is incredibly busy, one of the most dangerous intersections in the area. We'll talk through more specific safety concerns on this in just a few slides. The fastest way to get to Waukesha North is via highway. I wasn't allowed to drive on the highway until I was in college, yet we will have to put our newly driving 16-year-old students on this long commute. We also need to remember that we live in Wisconsin. We do have inclement weather often during winter months. So a longer commute means longer times dealing with ice, snow, etc. I also do have some concerns with texting and driving, especially during the longer commute. This slide lists all of the high schools that are closer to our neighborhood than Waukesha North. I was astounded to see that there are 12 high schools in the area that are closer to my home than my neighborhood Waukesha High School. Both Brookfield High Schools are closer. My husband works at Nathan Hale High School in West Allis, several suburbs away. That is closer, as is Waukesha South. Let's dive a little deeper into these safety concerns. This data comes from a Milwaukee Journal Sentinel article from 2018. In a conversation with Sarah Laster, a town of Brookfield police clerk, these rankings are still accurate today. 3 of the most dangerous intersections in the metro Milwaukee area are on part of our commute to Waukesha schools. In order to get to any Waukesha school, we need to pass through Blue Mountain Barker. Per Brookfield Police Department, there were 31 accidents at this intersection between January 1st, 2022 and the end of November of last year. 10% of these 31 accidents included children under the age of 18. The 10th most dangerous intersection in the metro Milwaukee area is that of Les Paul Parkway and East Racine Avenue. Depending on how you get to STEM Academy for middle school or Waukesha South, you may pass through this intersection. 24 accidents occurred at this intersection in 2022, according to the Waukesha Police Department. The 12th most dangerous intersection, according to this Milwaukee Journal Sentinel article, was the intersection of East Moreland Boulevard and Casau Road. Again, depending on how we get to some schools, we need to get through this intersection in order to get there. Per Waukesha PD, there were 15 accidents at this intersection in 2022. The intersection of Blue Mountain and Barker is a natural boundary between Waukesha and Brookfield. Currently, this intersection has a mall, 2 apartment complexes, and a freeway on-ramp. There is also new construction on the northeast corner of this intersection. They're putting in additional retail and office space, an additional apartment complex, making this intersection even busier than it already is. I am not an expert on how to count lanes of traffic, but I did consult with a friend of mine who happens to be a civil engineer, and she counted 36 lanes of traffic at this intersection. It is not pedestrian friendly. Our family really likes to bike, and I am not comfortable biking through this intersection. I don't even want to walk through this intersection. Furthermore, our neighborhood identifies with the Brookfield community. We are serviced by the Brookfield Post Office. We have Brookfield addresses. I receive the Brookfield Park and Rec Guide in the mail. When I go to the grocery store, it's in Brookfield. When we ride our bikes to the library, neighborhood parks, or the farmer's market, it's in Brookfield. Because of getting through Blue Mountain Barker and the distance to any of these activities within Waukesha, it is impossible to walk or ride my bike to those activities. All of the neighborhoods around us are part of the Elmbrook School District. I want to elaborate a bit on our neighborhood and how this school district change would alter the sense of community that we experience. Currently, our neighborhood is mostly older adults, although we have had quite a bit of turnover in the last several years. It's challenging to attract young families with children because of the school district. Some homes remain vacant or on the market longer than average because of this. Many families with children choose to attend private school or homeschool. There are currently only 5 families in our neighborhood of more than 100 houses who attend School District of Waukesha schools. Because of this, we don't have a neighborhood village to help raise our children. Families are not headed out to school at the same time. They don't even usually head in the same direction. Off days are different. Yes, my children have friends in the neighborhood, but those relationships would be so much stronger if they were at the same school, on the same sports teams, could commute together, could commiserate over similar teachers or homework projects. There are many children that are of similar age in our neighborhood that don't know each other, but would most likely be in the same classroom if we were in the same school district. Over the past couple of months, I've been very worried about how we're going to get our son to middle school. And it just hit me last week that if this petition goes through and we're able to attach to the Elmbrook School District, it's not just an individual problem for my family. So many of those problems will dissipate because we will have a community. My son could walk to school with friends. We could coordinate carpooling with neighbors. We will get our sense of community back, and that is a huge sense of relief. Because so few families in our neighborhood choose Waukesha schools, there are very few options to help manage long and frequent trips for athletics or other extracurricular activities. Feeder program athletics are often held at high schools. Because of our long commute, parents may spend 40 minutes or more round trip dropping their kids off at practice and picking them up from practice. Due to the long travel times, it may not be worth it for parents to make it back home, so parents may sit and wait in the parking lot or in the gym while they wait for their kids to finish practice. This is so much wasted time. So I want to look at a sample after-school schedule for a family of 2 boys who plays basketball in the Waukesha North feeder program. On Monday night, boy number 1 has practice at Lowell. It's a 20-minute commute. Practice ends at 9 o'clock, which pushes bedtime back by an hour, so the child gets to bed at 10 p.m. Let's imagine that this student attends Horning. He has a 6:15 wake-up call so he can catch the bus. Tuesday night, boy number 2 also has practice at Lowell. This practice is a little bit shorter. It's only an hour and 15 minutes. With a 20-minute commute, it's unlikely that the parent is going to head home during this shorter practice time because there won't be much time before they need to head back to pick up practice. So they're likely sitting in the parking lot in their car or in the gym waiting for practice to be completed. Wednesday night, both boys have practice. 2 different schools, again, further commutes. If you tally up all of this driving, it's 56 miles per week. That's solely for basketball practice. This does not include weekend games. This does not include getting your kids to and from school. This does not include parent commutes to and from work. 3 hours and 20 minutes of driving per week solely to get your kids back and forth from basketball practice. Now, I know this has happened to probably every parent here. What happens if you get to that practice and you realize that your child has forgotten a critical piece of equipment? You've spent 20 minutes in the car and now you're headed back home and back to practice in order to get them the equipment that they need. Another challenge within our community is park and rec activities. Waukesha Park and Rec programs are open to Waukesha residents. We can register as non-residents and pay an additional fee in order to do that. Waukesha Park and Rec does not have a clause for participants who do not live within the city of Waukesha but are within school district boundaries. City of Brookfield Park and Rec does have a clause. Those programs are open to City of Brookfield residents and people who live within Elmbrook School District boundaries. We do not, so we are able to register several weeks after the programs have been open to school district participants and City of Brookfield residents, and we need to pay twice the normal fee. So when we are considering activities, if there are park and rec programs that we're interested in, we need to have a conversation with our kids of, do we want to participate in Waukesha, where it's likely you're going to know some kids from school, but it's going to be a longer commute, probably a little more inconvenient, or do we want to participate in Brookfield, where you're not going to know any kids because you don't go to school with any of them, but it's going to be closer to our home and an easier time to get there. Next, I want to talk through contiguous territory. Our petition creates a contiguous territory with existing school district boundaries. It is unlikely that additional subdivisions would request to detach, as we are surrounded by businesses, apartment complexes, or homes which are already in the school district. So we are talking about this area here highlighted in blue. So this area up here is the Shire, who won on appeal last year, and then this area in blue is our neighborhood. I'd like to transition to chat briefly about our personal experience with the School District of Waukesha. Here you see my two children. We have truly enjoyed our experience in the dual language program. We have loved that our children have been immersed in diversity and are working towards becoming bilingual and biliterate in Spanish. Our oldest is in 5th grade. He is very strong in math. We have asked at every conference since 2nd grade how he will continue to be challenged in this area. Teachers have done the best they can with the resources available to them to meet his needs. This year, he is completing online modules in math at the 6th grade level independently. At his fall conference, we asked his current teacher how he will continue to be challenged, and she stated that he needs to consider the STEM program. She even turned to him and said, "Dane, I'm so sorry that at the age of 10, you need to decide if you want to continue to learn Spanish or work on harder math concepts." So I want to rephrase that so we can think about it in a different way. So I asked, how will he continue to be challenged in math? And the answer was, we cannot challenge him enough in this school. For middle school, his neighborhood school of Horning will not be able to challenge him enough. He needs to go to the STEM program. I ask you, why can there not be the opportunity for both dual language and advanced math? Why can my child's needs not be met in his current school or at his neighborhood middle school? Why must I travel across the city of Waukesha to STEM Academy to ensure my child is adequately challenged? In all of my conversations with teachers about this, not one mentioned the Gifted and Talented program. I learned about GT through another parent about 6 weeks ago. I spoke with the principal about this, and she stated that he would be evaluated for the program before February. I am recording this on February 8th, and he has not yet been evaluated. You may wonder, why have I not advocated more for him to be tested for this program since learning about it? The principal shared that even if he does test into the program, there are not any additional resources that will be provided to him. He will simply have a GT label, and he will continue to work independently on 6th grade math. My son doesn't need a GT label. Every kid is gifted and talented in some way, and he does not need to feel more special than anyone else just because he passed a test. What he needs is additional services. He needs a school environment where he can be challenged and work with other students at the same level. He needs the social and emotional support to work through his perfectionism. He needs a teacher that can dedicate some attention to teaching math at his level instead of remediating the rest of the classroom. When I first heard about the GT program, I went to the website to learn more about it. I was shocked to see that of the 6 links available on the homepage, only the staff directory had current information. And this list included 21 different individuals who were responsible for the program. It wasn't clear to me from the directory who I specifically needed to reach out to. The links for identifying students did not work. The link to the program guide did not work. There's a link to the parent bulletin, which includes links from 5 or 6 years ago. The lack of available information on the website definitely had me questioning if the GT program within School District of Waukesha even existed. Many of my questions were answered when I listened to the January Teaching and Learning Committee meeting. Even the board knows that the GT program is struggling. Board President Dr. Piasek stated, "We are insufficiently resourced to identify our gifted and talented students across the district, and that number has gone down significantly over the last couple of years." Of the nearly 5,000 elementary students in the School District of Waukesha, there are currently less than 40 of those students who have been identified. About 240 secondary students are currently identified. Several years ago, the budget was cut for the GT program, so the current budget only allows for $1,200 per year to run the program. There are no longer any dedicated GT staff at the building level. The program is managed by school psychologists. There is 1 school psychologist in each elementary school. My initial thought was that if my son wasn't identified as GT in elementary school, it won't be a big deal. He'll be identified at the middle school level. However, at the middle and high school level, the school psychologists are shared, making it even harder to identify these students due to increased workload. There are also no longer advocates in each school to assist with social and emotional needs of these students. I also want to draw your attention to the pie chart here. This is showing a breakdown of each of the elementary schools and how many GT students have been identified at those schools. I want to draw your attention to the fact that Hillcrest, our neighborhood elementary school, is not on this list. Not a single student has been identified as GT. I think this speaks volumes about how School District of Waukesha is currently unable to meet all of our children's needs. I won't spend much time highlighting this, as I honestly don't know much about the Elmbrook GT program. But on paper, it looks significantly more robust than that within the School District of Waukesha. Their website includes a mission, a vision, and philosophy, none of which are included on the School District of Waukesha welcome page. There also is a talent development handbook and very clear links to the 2 people who coordinate the program for the Elmbrook district. I don't like the concept of comparing these 2 districts using district report cards. Due to demographic differences and available resources, comparing Waukesha to Elmbrook in this way is a bit like comparing apples to oranges. However, I wanted to share this data solely for the purpose of assessing math scores. Again, my son is strong in math. I have volunteered in his classroom to help low-performing math students with math games to practice skills and reinforce key concepts. I have no idea what grade level expectations look like, but I do know what my advanced level son is capable of. The disparity between my son's capabilities and what these lower performing math students could do was astounding. They were struggling with skills that my son had mastered at least 2 years prior. There is no way that my son's math teacher could possibly meet all of her students' needs with such a high achievement gap. Looking at the numbers between the 2 districts, you can see that about 90% of students in the Elmbrook district are proficient in math. Compare that with the Waukesha district, which is at 60%. If I need my son to be challenged in math, I would much rather have him in a classroom where at least 90% of his peers are performing at grade level. Another timely topic related to educational differences between these two districts is that of teacher retention. The Waukesha School District has had difficulty retaining teachers. Teachers have been leaving the Waukesha District more than neighboring districts. New teachers are often younger, less experienced, and less expensive. The result is that Waukesha students have less consistency at their schools and less opportunities to form meaningful bonds. Waukesha students will have newer and less experienced teachers. I'd now like to transition to discuss the financial impact that this detachment would have on the school district of Waukesha. I know historically this has been the Waukesha School Board's biggest concern with losing our neighborhood. At the January Finance and Facility meeting, School District of Waukesha's auditor, Wendy, from Baker Tilly, presented the audit from the 2021-22 school year. From what I had previously heard about School District of Waukesha's financial situation, I expected this meeting to be very doom and gloom. However, Wendy's report was very optimistic. She even gave the district a financial grade of B, reporting that they were in a very good place financially. When comparing the total assessed value of the entire School District of Waukesha and our community, you can see that there is minimal financial impact. The total assessed value of the School District of Waukesha is around $14 billion. The total assessed value of our neighborhood is around $46 million. Our community only makes up 0.33% of the overall assessed value. Over the last 5 years, there has been significant development at the intersection of Blue Mound and Barker Road. The corners, the apartment at Poplar Creek, and the proposed Poplar Town Center are all new revenue sources for the School District of Waukesha. I have chosen to highlight these new developments because they are in our community. I am confident that there have been additional developments in other areas of Waukesha that have contributed to additional tax revenue for the school district since this petition was last brought before the board in 2011. However, because I do not know Waukesha well, I have chosen to highlight those that I am familiar with. Both the Corners and Poplar Creek are in an active TIF district. When the TIF expires, School District of Waukesha will receive a large sum of money based on how long the TIF was in place and other factors. TIF 14 just expired in Waukesha, and School District of Waukesha received $2.4 million. The annual tax revenue for the School District of Waukesha from Brookfield Corners is around $327,000. The annual tax revenue coming from Poplar Creek Apartments is around $160,000, and the annual tax revenue coming from our neighborhood is around $288,000. So if we look at this combined, Brookfield Corners and Poplar Creek Apartments are contributing about $485,000 in annual tax revenue to the district. Removing the revenue from our neighborhood, around $288,000, is still leaving the district with around $200,000 in net profit. The revenue from the Corners and Poplar Creek Apartments would offset any revenue lost from our neighborhood. But there's more to the story. The Poplar Creek Town Center is a $120 million development that is being constructed at the northeast corner of Blue Mound and Barker. Again, this will include hotels, retail, office space, and over 400 residential units. That is double Poplar Creek. Taxes received from this proposed development will be more than the corners of Brookfield and Poplar Creek Apartments combined. The Poplar Creek Town Center is also part of the TIF district. Based on the sea of marketing banners surrounding the development site, this complex is not marketing to families. They're looking for older couples that are retired or empty nesters, similar to the population at Brookfield Corners, or for young adults, not people with kids. This means that School District of Waukesha will gain additional tax revenue without a substantial increase in the number of children entering the district. Even under the TIF, the amount that the Waukesha School District will receive will more than make up for the removal of our community from the district. In summary, we believe that the Summit Lawn Estates and Black Forest Knoll subdivisions will be better served by the Elmbrook School District. We are in closer proximity to all Elmbrook schools. There are fewer travel-related safety concerns. Shorter commutes will increase time for other activities, improving the health and well-being of both parents and students. We will gain an increased sense of community, and there are some concerns that the School District of Waukesha is not able to meet all children's needs. In addition, due to new construction, we believe that this detachment can be successfully completed with minimal adverse financial effect on the School District of Waukesha. Thank you for your time, your attention, and your sincere consideration of our concerns.
All right. Thank you. Did you have any comments to add, or should we move on to the other proponents?
I think one of the comments was just that.
Could you get closer to the podium, please?
Just
Thank you.
that map, we did get the signature of the gentleman that owns, I think maybe that's what, so you were calling it the Shire. It's the wooded lot between us and the Shire. So I don't know if that was on your map or not, but I just wanted to confirm the contiguous piece that's there. And just on another note, this is about getting our community. Like, we never even had it back. Like, we just want a community. And we know that we don't want to burden the Waukesha School District. We have friends there, so that financial piece was also important to us. And we think that this is a good time to make this decision to approve this. And that slide, when it comes to the commuting back and forth to the practices, that's my life. You see it on paper, but what you don't see me is sitting in that car for all those hours, or me doing laps at Lowell, just like a caged animal. I sit at work all day at my desk at home, and 3 days out of my week, I have to go and sit someplace else alone. This life is isolating, and I have so many other things to do with my time. And I hope you can see it, and you have in your hearts to just not make the decision to deny right away. And you're going to hear more testimony, and I appreciate your time and listening. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We'll take these in order as we go. I have Jane, is it Pipia? And then Eric Engel. Jane?
Good evening. My name is Jane Pipia. I live at 890 Briar Ridge Drive in Brookfield. I'm part of the Waukesha School District. I'm in this neighborhood we're here to talk about tonight. I'm the mom of 2 daughters, both graduated from the Elmbrook School District via open enrollment. I'm a new grandma of an awesome little 9-month-old grandson. I own and operate my own successful business for over 18 years. I drink too much Diet Coke. And I'm here tonight just as a concerned resident at this point. Our neighborhood has asked you, or is asking you once again, to let our neighborhood go, our subdivisions leave Waukesha School District so we can attend the Elmbrook School District, where we once were and where we're actually supposed to be. The first time I was involved in the detachment hearing was in early 2000. At the first DPI hearing, the Waukesha School Board president told the appeal court that if our houses, our subdivisions, left, Pleasant Hill Elementary School would close. We lost our fight, as no school board district on the appeal committee would allow such a loss to happen to the Waukesha School District. Waukesha School District was able to hold on to our money, our tax money, and in our minds, hold on to our children, as Pleasant Hill Elementary School still permanently closed its doors after we were told that was the reason we could not leave. Not only do we not feel attached to the Waukesha School District, our neighborhood is not attached to the Waukesha School District except by boundary. We are, well, as Katie mentioned, we are on the east side of Barker Road, which may as well be the other side of the world to a small child who doesn't understand why they can't have play dates, why they don't get ghosted, which is something silly, but when all the kids get ghosted at Halloween and we never do, we don't live there. Why we can't drive their bike to school, why they're too far to participate in most extracurricular activities, why it's too far for students to feel that like they belong. Like I said, my family open enrolled into the Elmbrook School District. My youngest daughter was the last class that Elmbrook allowed to open enroll. Even with that stroke of luck, our kids could not play soccer, basketball, or other park and rec sports. Although Katie mentioned that we could apply weeks after registration occurred, sports for kids is always full. It was always full. We could never participate. So our kids sat on the sidelines. They sat on the sidelines watching their friends. Our kids are always the outsiders. We're the outsiders in the Waukesha School District, and with my kids being in the Elmbrook School District, as far as playing with their friends, participating in sports with their friends, they were again outsiders. But the Waukesha School District never seemed to have cared about that in my eyes. It always seemed to have come down to tax dollars and what the Waukesha School District would lose by letting us go. Waukesha receives tax revenue for our 100 houses, or 108 houses, but has educated less than a dozen of those houses at any given time during my 20-plus years of living in this neighborhood. Because the district has forbidden us from leaving, our kids don't have the sense of community. Our families the families we live by send their children to private schools, parochial schools, open enroll to Pewaukee, use an ex-address to who lives within the school district, or they move when the kids become school age. Our neighborhood is very transient because of that. They move or we don't attract them at all. Our kids don't ride together on the buses, they don't play sports together, they don't know each other. If you don't live across the street or on the same little cul-de-sac, you don't know the kids from 4 streets down. I think kids should be able to at least feel at home in their own neighborhood, if not in their schools. But Waukesha School District has continued to stand in the way of that by not letting us go. Our children deserve better. I think they would be far better served by attending the Elmbrook School District, which we are physically attached to. Sending them to the Elmbrook School District would finally give our kids the sense of belonging and the sense of community that we've craved for so long. The sense of community and comfort should be allowed to all students, including ours. I ask you not just to look at the money, but to look at the students, our kids, who for years have struggled. I know Angela said several years. We've been trying to do this for several years. I'm going to tell you that we've been trying to do this for several decades. This has been a fight. And I ask you today to allow us to detach from the Waukesha School District and attach to the Elmbrook School District where we belong. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Mr. Engel, followed by Martin Ballin.
Good evening. My name is Eric Engel. I live at 19437 Black Forest Drive. Our story is a little different. Bought our house in 2018. We lived in the city of Brookfield prior to that. So we are open enrolled in Elmbrook. So you may ask, why am I here? I'm taken care of right now. But we're here for support. And this isn't meant to be an offense to the Waukesha School District, but when we bought the house, it was contingent. The first thing we looked at, price, size, nothing. It was, if we buy this house, can we remain in the Elmbrook School District? And it became more of a matter of convenience, yeah, and they did a great job in the presentation. Commute times, everything that comes into play there. Distance makes a huge difference. The 40 minutes on a bus, we have let me backtrack a little, a 7th grader at Wisconsin Hills and a freshman at Brookfield Central. But yeah, bought the house in 2018, so 3rd and 5th grade at the time. But yeah, not only in the commute, but when they talk about the extracurriculars, the time she spends at practice, that also comes into play. That's both participation and attending. Our kids go to the high school games, watch their peers play, and being 5 minutes away makes a huge difference than being 20 minutes away, the back and forth, the sitting in the car, possibly waiting. In this day and age, with social media and the way kids are being raised, being with their peer group is a huge thing. So yeah, they'd be missing out on a lot of that if they were attending the Waukesha School District right now. And so yeah, that comes into play, and also their friends. Attending Waukesha, yeah, if they're attending Waukesha, they're going to have their peer group, but their peer group also is going to live 15, 20, maybe 30 minutes away. All of my kids' friends right now are within 5 to 10 minutes of our house. Makes it easier for them to come over, makes it easier for our kids to go somewhere else. So, again, just wanted to keep this short, just here to offer my support for this because I do believe it's necessary. But when you take all this, the presentation, everything into consideration, I guess this becomes a matter of both looking out for the children and their upbringing. I mean, it is a big deal, like I said, with the social presence out there now. So their upbringing and, how different things are these days. But also, to me, it's just a matter of common sense. I mean, it's 5 minutes we take our daughter to Wisconsin Hills in the morning, so put her in the car. Being there and back in 5 minutes is huge. The wake-up time, I don't know what any of your children's situation are, but yeah, the freshman boy does not want to get up for school. And it's a huge thing having to just take him the 5 minutes to Brookfield Central versus whether it be throwing him on a bus or having to drive him to whichever high school he'd be attending in Waukesha. So again, I think they did a wonderful job in the presentation. I'm just here to support that, and I hope you take all this into great consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Mr. Ballin, followed by Brian Stericker.
Hello, my name is Martin Ballon. I live in 19285 Black Forest Drive. When we moved to Brookfield 2 years ago, we find out that our school is going to be so far that we thought it wasn't worth it to move the school from our 8 years old daughter to Waukesha. So doing that, we realized that later that as an immigrant, we don't have much family here and we don't have community. I mean, we are looking for a sense of community. Thanks to Andrea, I get to know some of my neighbors. I guess it's very important for us to build community, to build that sense of getting to know people. My wife and I have that feeling that allowing our daughter to go to the school where she can see the neighbors, she can see familiar faces, will mean the world to her and to us. I guess it's very important to spend more time with your kids instead of traveling. Just providing quality time and investing in your children. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stericker, followed by Amanda Pitko.
Good evening. My name is Brian Stericker. I live at 875 Janisek Road in the town of Brookfield, and we are currently part of the Waukesha School District. I'm here tonight with my wife, Katie. As you've heard, our neighborhood, Summit Lawn Estates, in the town of Brookfield is a wonderful place. We are surrounded by thoughtful neighbors, sturdy old trees, several deer and turkeys, and many excellent schools. The only drawback being we cannot currently send our kids to those schools. We are petitioning to leave the school district of Waukesha and join the school district of Elmbrook so we can be connected to our immediate community even more so than we are today. For us, it's a matter of distance, as you've heard from other people, and more importantly, time. It's a busy world that we all live in, and being able to drive less on regular school days and to practices and performances, social events, and more would help us save this most important resource for all of us, which is time. And it's also a matter of relationships. We want to be able to strengthen those relationships and friendships across our community, from the library to the farmer's market to church and other social activities. We want the opportunity to stay connected as much as possible with the people that we see, that we help out, that we share stories with or otherwise live with on a regular basis. And as we're here tonight, we're at the point when this message is needed and is being read, and we know that we are not alone in our thoughts. So again, thank you for your time.
Thank you. I can't pronounce the last name. Is it Pitko?
Pizzo.
I apologize.
I also have a few letters that other people wrote. Should I do those after what I read? Do you want me to read letters?
What's the appropriate procedure on that? I suppose you could leave those with us. You have them in print? You can leave them with the secretary. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. My name is Amanda Pizzo, and my address is 19545 Black Forest Drive in Brookfield, and currently in the Waukesha School District. I currently have two boys at home, Nikolai and Nolan, who are enrolled in Burleigh Elementary in the Elmbrook School District. We previously lived in the city of Brookfield. Their father still lives in the city of Brookfield, and we've maintained that they stay in school there. I have a couple primary concerns for considerations. Most everything has already been stated, but I'll say it again. The first being community. My kids obviously have great relationships at school, but our neighborhood divides our community from Brookfield. These kids know some of their neighbors. Some go to school in Waukesha, some in Brookfield, some in private school. But if you think about other kids, they go to school with their neighbors, right? That's how they learn what a community is actually built up. Our address says that we're in Brookfield, but the schools that we're aligned to are in a city that honestly, I had to use a map to get here tonight because I never leave Brookfield. I just don't. I have everything I need, and my time is really important. The travel time to and from schools is a big concern for me, and the safety. Everyone has shared those similar concerns, and I agree with it all. But I have an additional dynamic in my family, and that impacts our daily life. So my husband was diagnosed with brain cancer in 2018, and he has become the primary caregiver for our children, which means he takes them to school, he picks them up from school, if school calls, he helps. But he's able to do that because we're in the Elmbrook School District, and it's close. It's what he knows, and it's consistent. If he had to travel to and from Waukesha, where he doesn't know, like prior to brain cancer, all of those responsibilities would fall on me. And I already work and do everything else. My kids are also lucky to be in Elmbrook. They've got the right support needed. One has a 504 plan. The teachers are constantly in contact with us on how he's doing. I've had an older who's graduated. I saw the support that was given through graduation, and I have a youngest who knows everybody at school, right? Their school is their community. When we trick or treat, we go to the school. Like, we trick or treat outside the school. It means we leave our neighborhood so we can actually go be with the people that they're in school with. I'm here today asking that you allow us to detach from the Waukesha School District and attach to Elmbrook. Personally, for me, that would give me a busing option. My kids would be allowed to get on the bus to and from school, and it would allow my family the more peace that my husband didn't have to do all of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Colin Keating.
Good evening. My name is Colin Keating. I live at 715 Russet Drive in Brookfield, 53045. I'm here today with my wife, Erin, and all my lovely neighbors to petition to detach from the Waukesha School District and join the Elmbrook School District. Although I don't have any kids yet, my wife and I are expecting our first one, and thank you. So for us, really, everyone pointed out a lot of great points. I don't think I could really add anything that's going to be above and beyond what they've pointed out, but again, for us, it's really going to come down to the commute times. It took me about an hour to get here from my job tonight, whereas if I was driving to a to a Brookfield school, it'd take me about half an hour. With a new one on the way, obviously, it's important to be able to get there in a very timely fashion, and so that's going to be a very important thing as we become new parents, to be close and be able to get to our kid quickly if necessary. My wife works on the east side of town. I work on the southeast side of Milwaukee near the airport. So again, the timing is going to be the most important factor to us, along with everything else that's kind of been pointed out tonight. So please consider us for the detachment and the move to Elmbrook. Really appreciate all your time and everything you guys do for the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents for the petition that would like to speak?
I have emails still. Don't know what you want me to do with those.
We're going to make the decision tonight, so unless you have a way to put those emails in front of us.
Well, they're on my computer. I didn't know if you needed a hard copy or if you want me to read them on my computer. I've never done this before, so I'm not sure the process.
Was there a deadline given for submission of materials?
Just the posting of the meeting.
Okay. How many emails do you have?
8.
And are they from people who signed the petition?
Yes.
Okay, we'll consider those proponents. Everyone who signed the petition is proponent of the petition, so we don't need to read the emails unless a board member feels that that's necessary. Does that make sense? Mr. Como?
Unless there was some unique piece of information
Is there something
that hasn't
new?
been presented. Or is it all similar to what we've heard so far?
It's similar. I mean, there's one that Amanda has that's a hard copy. A child did get in an accident in the Perky Corners intersection, just to, as another data point. But other than that, it's very consistent message.
Okay, thank you. I don't think it would be necessary to read them. Sue, for the hard copies that were provided to you, if any board member wishes to see those, they could. All right, we're going to move on to the opportunity for the opponents of the petition to speak. As each opponent speaks, I would ask you to first state your name, address, and school district of residence, and to please sign the registration sheet if you have not already. There will be no time limit for speaking. However, I will rule if too much time is used. I have 2 people registered to speak, and one, am I able to share the name? One who registered objection, but did that in writing. And that was Ms. Cruz of 812 Rock Street. So the first opponent is Beth Feist.
Hi, my name is Beth Feist. I reside at 805 East Briar Ridge Drive in Brookfield, and we are in the School District of Waukesha. I first want to say, keeping with this, respecting one another, I can appreciate what you guys are bringing to the table. However, we are just in opposition of that, but can appreciate your concerns. So one of the issues on the slide point and that people are speaking to is the distance to the schools in Waukesha. Yes, we are in a pocket, I would say. And yes, you know, obviously our drive times are further. I'm here with my husband, my 2 children. We also attend dual language, and we go yet even further than I think anybody in our community, and we're at Hawthorne Elementary at dual language. We made a choice that we wanted to enroll our children in dual language. My son was originally enrolled at Hillcrest, and we learned about the dual language program, and so then we chose to make that commitment to take him to Hawthorne, and we knew that drive was part of that, and I have lucky enough, you know, to be able to structure my workday around that. I think, and then, so just to speak to that, I mean, the STEM Academy, it's probably also not, I believe for the high schools or even middle schools, you can try to choice in like what we do. Like obviously Hawthorne is not our home school. And so then, you know, it would be Les Paul, Horning, or Butler. So I believe that if they're choosing the STEM Academy is not like one of the 3. So they're choosing an option that doesn't offer busing because they feel that better meets their child's needs. You know, so I guess that they have the options to try the other 3 middle schools, but, you know, are choosing something that offers something different in terms of that distance. I wanted to speak to the sense of community that people have, you know, spoke about bringing that back to our community. And there was families that spoke about already being in the Elmbrook School District. I reached out to, 4 families in our block, and one point to make, I think, about our neighborhood is that we are sort of stretched out within our own neighborhood, and so I mean, like around our whole neighborhood is a mile. So you have, you know, families that might be 1 mile from each other, corner to corner. So obviously my 8-year-old, I'm not going to send him, you know, walking necessarily a mile because he doesn't even, you know, he's like, Mom, I won't know how to get there. You know, so just logistically having us be together as a community, I think our neighborhood isn't really set up to socialize very easily. Another thing that I learned is I reached out to some families in our like block area, if you will. So 4 families, 3 of them responded. 2 of them would not change their school plans. One is homeschooling, one is at Brookfield Academy. They would not switch to Elmbrook. And then the other one, they were on the fence. They're at I believe it's the Brookfield Christian Academy. And she just said they would have to look into what the school, you know, was about and whatnot. So it wasn't a definite maybe. In terms of, you know, creating that sense of community, I still see that I think people would, you know, tend to, if they're at a parochial or whatnot, that, you know, it's not a game changer, that it's, you know, they may or may not decide to utilize the Elmbrook schools. And then I guess, you know, just the other point, I can appreciate that time that people are talking about because, I mean, that will be our reality if, you know, as we continue in the Waukesha school districts. You know, however, I don't want people to fall into that trap of, you know, I want it now, I want it now. I lived in a rural area. I had an hour bus ride, you know. I was not in the town where my school was, and yes, we were bused. You know, last one's off, or last one's on, and last one's off. And it was what it was. So, I mean, I don't think that long bus rides are anything new, and especially maybe more in the rural areas. One more point about distance too is that, there's been families in our neighborhood that have chosen to go to Catholic Memorial High School, which is 1 mile down the hill from Waukesha South. So, it doesn't really feel like the goal is to unify the community necessarily, but that's my thought. So, thank you.
Thank you. And we also have Brandon Feist. Brendan.
Yes, Brandon Feist. My wife just spoke. I'd like to start with, my name's Brandon Feist. I'm at 805 East Briar Ridge Drive. I want to start by saying, I'm not trying to, hurt anyone's feelings. Like, I want a community as well, and there's nothing personal here. One thing that got brought up with the PowerPoint, which is a very good PowerPoint, you guys make I can't argue with a lot of your, a lot of the points you're making, was, that it's not supposed to be offensive. I hope everyone in this room felt offended by that, because my wife and Nina and myself spent a lot of time with our PTA and our wonderful teachers in our Waukesha schools. Our children go to Hawthorne Elementary School in the dual language, and we spend hours and hours on conference calls raising money for our schools. I got a degree in urban planning and urban development, and I can tell you some of that information with the TIFs just is not correct, right? You're not going to go to a city hall meeting and say that $250,000 for a school, that then go to schools where we have 2 Title I schools in Waukesha. That's not going to hurt them. These people that bought these houses, including myself, when I bought this house, I knew that when I bought the house, I was going to go to Waukesha schools. I knew I was going to go to Waukesha schools. Just because it says on our driver's license, Brookfield, we're in the town of Brookfield, we're not in the city of Brookfield. We can't take our waste, our recycling to the city of Brookfield. We're just not a part of it. We're not a part of the city of Waukesha either. We can't sign up for the recreational things. And I'm not 100% sure if we did get put into the Brook School District, if we would be able to participate in the city park and rec, because we're still not part of the city and we don't pay city taxes. I might be wrong. I can only make assumptions. So I just want to throw that out there. Community got brought up a couple times, and I feel we got a pretty good community. I think we have a really good relationship with everybody here. I don't think anyone's really, stepped in anyone's shoes, and my children play with a lot of the children in the neighborhood. We do things like, we had a Christmas party where, we opened up 2 houses and we got together. We went to, we met at one of the local bars, and everyone got together. We had a street party this summer. So I think the opportunities are there if we're willing to put the time together to bring a community together. One of the things got brought up was, what is the community up above? I'm sorry.
The Shire.
The Shire was that the border of Brookfield and Waukesha, and you might know better than me because it just popped up, ran down the center of their community. So across the street, you'd be going to a different school than the other people across the street from them. So that I can see bring them together. One thing is going through this petition process, where they utilize a forum called Nextdoor. So you can see kind of the steps that the hard work that they put, trying to put this together, and I can appreciate that. But one of the things that came up was a chipping away strategy after talking to the people up there to try to take a couple blocks out at a time to try to get them into Elmbrook because it might be easier. Completely going against the pulling together in the community and working together and letting people know each other. That's not bringing apart the community. That's breaking it apart. That's chipping it apart. Another thing she said there were that she admits of being short and agitated with some people and short-sighted and having to go back and maybe apologize to some of these people. I know some of these people, especially one of my neighbors who works in the Elmbrook School District, said that they just signed it so they didn't have to be combative and have to disagree and argue. Now, obviously you have the signatures, so that's just my hearsay, but that was one thing. And she also said that she didn't feel that she had to worry about it because they're bursting at the seams in Elmbrook. They have plenty of money. They're not bringing people in and choicing people in because they have full schools. So we're actually putting more kids in those classes, hurting the numbers of kids in the classes per teacher, and then taking away students that are diverse in the Waukesha school districts. My kids, it's a beautiful thing. They don't know prejudice, right? I have kids of all colors staying over my house, and they have no difference. My children are just as good for the other children in your school district as they are for us. It's a beautiful, wonderful thing. The teachers that we see at Hawthorne love our students. Mr. Pabone, the music teacher, I mean, everyone just lights up when they see him. He puts so many hours, and all the teachers put so many hours and care so much about the children there. It's not about numbers. Those numbers out there with math, the thing is from kindergarten, or when you start math testing, third grade to fifth grade is in Spanish. Half the kids in my kids' class, Spanish is their second language, and they're taking that testing in Spanish. And they're keeping up. They're not failing and they're not falling behind. So some of those numbers have to come up with the middle school and the high school and look at those numbers, because you can see by the reason when we put our kids in there, because you see after third and fourth grade, those kids start flourishing because they're a dual language and they speak two languages. So those numbers, I don't believe those numbers. I think that, they're a little lopsided because you have a lot of dual language kids. A lot of kids that English is their second language. My wife did speak to some of the kids that are going to the private schools and whatnot, and homeschooled. They're still going to consider doing that, even if Elmbrook School District does open up. Now, I'm happy for the families that when they moved to the town of Brookfield, still got to keep their children going to the city of Brookfield. But when they moved to the community, they knew that the schools that we were supposed to go to, that are tax money, was supposed to go to Waukesha schools. As far as safety and long bus rides, I think a better conversation would be, hopefully you can take this to the schools and look at what is the possibility to be able to make these bus rides a little bit shorter. Because I think that's a lot easier thing to look into than trying to take a whole group of people who already are part of the Waukesha School District, pull them out, and put them with kids they don't know. Breaking apart the community that we've had. We just had children over at our house and play dates this week, and they stayed overnight, and those are kids from Waukesha. I feel bad that some people said that, well, they don't go to Waukesha, they don't take part of Waukesha. Well, all I do, I'm part of some public service groups in Waukesha. All my friends are in Waukesha. We go to Frame Park, we run around Frame Park. Waukesha has a lot to offer, so I hope that everybody can get out to see Waukesha and experience it, because it's a wonderful city. So one of the things that was kind of thrown out was our property value going up. If we get part of the Elmbrook School District, the property value is going to go up, and that there's houses that are sitting out there that are empty. Some of those houses that are empty, they're not up for sale. The people they're just empty. Another house just down the street was just put on up for sale for $1.3 million just like 4 or 5 months ago. Most houses that got put up for sale in a reasonable price sold in the first 2 weeks. So our community isn't derelict. It's a very nice community. Catholic Memorial, going to schools, choicing into schools that are further away than, the furthest away schools north. My wife did bring up a good point where, I too grew up in a farm town, and I was on the bus for over an hour growing up on a farm and whatnot, and it was perfectly fine. It's not acceptable if we got our kids on a bus for 40 minutes if they don't have to be on a bus for 40 minutes. That's something I hope you can help us with. But I think looking at the routes and maybe making some changes would really, really help out. So I'm a superintendent, so I have guys that take care of elevators all around the southeast corner of Wisconsin, and all my guys have little routes that they do. And if I had a guy that moved, from Racine up to Menominee Falls and said that he wanted everything to move for him because he moved, that would be unacceptable to me. He knew that this is what school he was going to, or this is where his job was located, and he moves far away. It doesn't seem okay to me, and it seems a little selfish to think that everybody else's property tax should go up. Everybody else needs to go to a different school because you move to a community knowing what school district you're in, and think that everybody else should change their plans just for you. So I hope in 10 years we can talk about this again, and I know next time I'm going to put together a PowerPoint so I don't have to sit up and talk in front of everybody. I appreciate all your guys' time, and I hope you're proud of your teachers and everything they do, because you do have a wonderful school system, and those numbers doesn't reflect how hard those kids work. And I hope that everybody can be part of the PTA and raise money because it's not about how much money and all that. If you want better classes, if you want gifted classes, take part of the school and make that happen, because that stuff should be happening. I agree, 100% agree with you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm a little passionate.
No apologies needed by anyone tonight. We now have, are there any other individuals who wanted to speak as an opponent of the petition? Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
If for some miracle you allowed us to leave tonight, would the Fleiss family be allowed to?
We can't answer that question.
No. As a policy, do you have open enrollment?
I can speak to that.
Can I just clarify for 1 second? Hang on 1 second.
Yeah.
We're going to move through a series of steps here. So one is that anyone who spoke in support of the petition can rebut any comments in opposition, and then those speaking in opposition can also speak again, okay? So with respect to your question, the only question that's on the table for us tonight is whether to allow to detach that property. So we are unable to take an action other than what has been proposed to us in the petition.
Okay.
Okay. So does anyone wish to speak in response? Anyone who spoke in support of the petition would have to be a registered speaker. Mrs. Papp. Ms. Papp.
I just wanted to say that I love our teachers too. Since kindergarten, for both Banting and Hillcrest, I've been running Staff Appreciation Week. Every year, I make even homemade almond milk for these teachers. I absolutely love our teachers. This is literally not a comparison for us. There are great people everywhere, in every school district, and I guarantee I would find them. And there are some definitely in Waukesha too. I haven't had a bad experience with a teacher or Mrs. Garcia Velez. She came to our house during COVID and wrote happy birthday in chalk for my son outside. It was the sweetest thing ever. I don't want anybody walking away here thinking that we don't appreciate the teachers or the staff at any of our schools. So I just wanted to make that, I think there was, no, that's it, thank you.
Thank you.
I have one thing.
Okay.
Diversity was brought up and prejudice. My kids have friends of all colors, and they're in Albert School District. There's teachers of all kinds. Not once did prejudice or diversity ever come up as being something that we were arguing. I just don't want, my kids, right, that made it feel like this was a prejudice thing. This has nothing to do with that. So that's what I wanted to say.
All right. Is there anyone else who spoke in support of the petition that wishes to offer any additional information? Mr. Engel. I apologize. I got it right, okay.
Just real quick, he had referred to our sense of community. This isn't about us not getting along with our neighbors or anything. Yeah, we have a great neighborhood area. We do have the summer parties. Get along with all my neighbors just fine. So it's not about the sense of community. It's more about the children, the peer groups, as the map showed, we're unfortunately kind of segregated from the rest of Waukesha. And yes, Waukesha is a great community. I don't know a lot about it. I get lost every time I'm out here with all the one-way streets. I have to pull up the map. But yeah, I just wanted to touch base on the sense of community for our neighborhood. This isn't what it's about. It's not about, we don't get along with each other. It's more about the peer groups and then children being able to interact with each other. So that's all I want to say. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. And then the last step here is the opponents have one final opportunity for rebuttal or summation. If there's anything else, Mr. or Mrs. Feist, that you'd like to offer.
I just wanted to say, I think that, like my husband said, the opportunities are there. Angela, our kids have connected, we've texted for play dates. We text with a family that's homeschooled, and it's just, taking that step. Maybe it's uncomfortable to, we went and knocked on our neighbor's door and because they're homeschooled, and it was like, I think our sons are the same age, and that's how we met. So yeah, it might be a little bit uncomfortable, but I think that especially with the block parties and the opportunities that we do as adults for our community, that the kids all played at that block party this summer. So why haven't we kept in touch? That would be my question. Like, what stops us from keeping in touch with the children, in our neighborhood? The other thing that this felt like, and again, was that, there was, when we were approached to sign the petition, it was that our taxes would increase, yes, but the cost of other people to send their children to private school, like our $500, individual $500 increase is way less than the $4,000 that it costs to send the kids to a private school. And that just, it sort of felt like, why don't you chip in so that, we can all save money. It just felt like not a problem that people should be asked, because they're making a choice again to go to a private school that, I should not have to offset that. So that's all that I wanted to say.
Okay. Thank you. So at this time, I'm going to close the public presentations and comments on this petition and open the school board deliberations. It's important to understand the only information presented hereafter will be on request of the school board members concerning the information received by them or brought out in this meeting. At this time, are there any questions or information that any board member would like answered or clarified? Mr. Como.
I just want to look at safety, and there were some figures that were brought up by the proponents dealing with safety, and I don't know if you have access to this or not, but I'm wondering if there have been any school bus accidents, any things that we can report on these particular routes with respect to safety. What does the safety record look like?
The safety record of all of our buses has been very good. We haven't had a major bus accident. There have been a couple of fender benders. A bus turns and bumps into a car, things of that nature. I couldn't speak specific to this subdivision, but we've only had a couple of those instances this year. And again, no major accidents involving injury, but a bump, fender bender type thing across our 85 bus routes every day.
Okay. And then I also have another question. Elmbrook is, with respect to open enrollment, is closed this year?
They've been closed for the last number of years by their choice.
Okay, do you know about how many years, Dr. Cook?
Off the top of my head, I think it's 8, but it could be longer.
Okay. Okay, and I would make the assumption that if they're not allowing students to open enroll, they just don't have room.
I believe that that's what their argument is. The last time I talked to their superintendent, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Moore.
Thank you. The proponents talked about distance, and I want to ask, is there any way that distance can be shorter to get these students to school in Waukesha, so they don't have to make the long commute, or like, it's something that we can address later about, maybe come up with some creative ideas so that those distance times, if they were to stay in the district or not, I don't know, but if they were, how can we address the distance so that, students can get to school a lot sooner? And is it a possibility we can discuss that later on if they were to stay in the district?
Well, I want to probably defer to the administration, but, short of moving buildings, I think we have catchment area discussions that we could have, since there are schools within the district that may be closer than the schools that they're districted to. But again, that's not on the table for tonight's decision. Unless you know of some technology that I don't know about that, Mr. Zenobia.
Well, and I guess the point that I would make or ask administration is, we do have a number of areas where there's distance involved in busing, and children sit on buses for a long period of time. Generally speaking, is it uncommon for students at any grade level to be on a bus for an hour? I mean, is that?
High school routes will push an hour from time to time, yes.
Okay. I mean, so it's common for a lot of students in our district currently.
Correct. A lot of students ride the bus. We transport about 5,500 kids a day on the bus.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Montijo.
Thank you. First of all, to both presentations, exceptionally well done. It's not easy to, first of all, acquire this many signatures or put it together a half-hour presentation with that much density of information and make it as efficient for us. So thank you for that. I understand the seriousness of this and why it's so important to your families. I have kids too. So let me, I guess, put it this way. This is how I'm going to choose to view it, at least for this segment of the discussion. I understand the presentation, why this would be great for your families and why this would be appropriate, why this would be safer, and why this, so my comments that are coming are not ignoring those. I just want to say I understand those, I hear you. But as I mentioned at the attachment hearing that preceded this one, there's over 94,000 people who reside within the school district of Waukesha. So not only do we have to consider your important positions, which are real, and you did it well, but every single other person in the district, and how the detachment, if it would be allowed, how would it affect the finances in the district? Because it is a reality. So I don't know if the administration can tell me if we can boil it down. I know it's not just the loss of tax revenue, it's other things. Can we put a number on this as to what the outcome? Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, this was included in your packet. I had a revised one that I handed out because it's got off the bottom section.
Could you have a mic?
What was that?
Could you get a little closer? Thank you.
This was in your packet, but there's a revised one that I handed out earlier because the last portion of it, and probably most important portion of it, was left off. But if you go back, you can go back to the top, Joe. I'll just walk you through, because there's two things going on here with this potential detachment. The first one is the reallocation of tax dollars. The tax impact and our tax rate this year was $5.97 times the valuation of the property that we're talking about tonight is $277,000, very close to what you had on your slideshow. I think we were within $8,000 or $9,000 of each other. We still get to levy those dollars, but those dollars would be redistributed to all the remaining taxpayers in the school district of Waukesha, based on property valuation of their home. So it doesn't change the revenue picture, but it increases the tax burden on the rest of our community. There's a state aid component as well. State aid is a very complex calculation, but I did it on a very simple basis. We get about $4,800 per pupil in equalization aid. And what equalization aid does is buys down your tax levy.
It's the state's portion. Remember, if you've heard 2/3 funding in schools, it's all tied to that. So you would be putting us in a situation where we would lose another $175,000 in aid, meaning taxes would go up again, and then those dollars would be distributed across the remaining taxpayers in the school district of Waukesha. So two things moving, but the same impact. No new revenue one way or the other, but just the shuffling around of the levy authority that the board has. The state also talks about the apportionment of assets and liabilities. Quite honestly, I'm not specific on how they would even go about doing that. So what I did is very similar to the math that was in the previous presentation. I said, well, what percentage of our equalized assessed valuation is this parcel or neighborhood? Then I took last year's financial statements and I said, well, total liabilities or total assets minus total liabilities, our net position. If the math is that simple, we would owe the Elmbrook School District $528,506. Again, DPI would have to refine that calculation. I'm not sure, but I don't know how else you would go about doing it than how we just did that. And I used last year's financials. It's a known. We know these numbers. The auditors reported up to the board in the last few weeks. The one thing I would point out about the earlier presentation, our revenue picture and our ability to generate revenue is different than a municipality, different than the county, different than WCTC or any other governmental body. If tax base goes up 50%, I don't get 50% more tax revenue. And then in your slideshow kind of indicated that we would have this influx because of those developments in the town of Brookfield. It doesn't work that way at all. The property valuation simply tells us how we're distributing the tax levy, not how we calculate the tax levy. And I think that's something in that PowerPoint that needs to be wordsmithed or corrected, because I think it's somewhat misleading on how, and I don't blame you, we're just different, right? All the other municipalities love tax-based growth. We do too. I think it's healthy for a community, but it doesn't move the needle financially for us. But what our generator is and what we look for is the number of kids we have in the school district. And the state authorizes us for this fiscal year via the revenue limit to levy $10,207 or generate that much between aid and levy. And revenue limit authority and $742 and per pupil, so about $11,000. So really again, I'm looking through the financial lens. This is why I'm here. It's the 37 kids times $11,000. That's our loss in gross revenue. A sizable amount, $405,000 from now until, I don't know, we all became one giant school district together somehow. But so this is really the net impact. So between the transition of the tax burden, the chance of having to distribute a percentage of our net assets, all big things, but really it's that ongoing annual revenue that whether they build 12 new malls in the town of Brookfield or none, or tear down 5, we're going to lose $405,000 every year forever.
And we're going to have to push if you could scroll up, I'm sorry, may I?
Of course, yes.
Okay, thank you. And the 277, 274, the 175, 714 would be, I'm sorry.
Yep.
That would be.
We would have to redistribute that tax burden onto our remaining taxpayers.
All right, so I guess trying to summarize your summary, just because you're the numbers guy, we'd have to reallocate $277,274, $175,714 to the remaining taxpayers who were not part of the detachment, and we're going to lose also $409,000, $405,111 per year in revenue authority, correct?
And transfer $528,000 of assets to Elmbrook.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Montijo.
So I weighed that against the presentation, which again I commented on already. playing devil's advocate, though, I'd also have to weigh it against the thoughts of those other people in the district who would say, the elephant in the room is, this was not a surprise to anyone who purchased a home in that district, in that area of your neighborhood. How do we possibly, that's what I'm weighing. Those numbers, which I know people say it shouldn't be about money, it is about money, because those numbers reflect, or are not just dollars in the bank that we sit on, those are applied to services in the district for all those other students. So how do we weigh that against your neighborhood, who I understand those arguments and feel for you? I don't see it as being on par. Okay, those are my thoughts.
We can't take any more comments at this time, I'm sorry. Mr. Como?
Just sticking along the lines of the financial side of things. TID, we had some information on TID 14 that had defeased, and we got a couple $1 million for that. Over the years, we've also had TIDs defease, and we've lost money. I'm not going to line item those, but the point that I want to make is the corners, when it defeases, it may or may not have a positive value. Now, I think it should be positive, but we don't know that, and we can't control that, nor can we count on that. So that's just a general comment that I would make to my fellow board members. The other thing that I wanted to talk a little bit about is our structural deficit. And Darren, what is that projected at for this next year?
We're targeting $8 million worth of reductions this year.
Okay. So the $405 million or $405,000 each year, every year, that's a significant chunk that could work towards that, help us with our structural deficit. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. And there's many aspects that we need to consider with this decision, and programming is another facet. It's not just financial, there's a programming facet. And if you take a look at the programs that we offer here and the choices that we offer here in the School District of Waukesha, they're very strong. They're super strong. And even some of the proponents had spoken to, liking their experience that their children had at some of our schools. And we have excellent schools, and we have great programs, and we have wonderful choice. And the choice is open to other districts. And we actually have more students over the last number of years choicing in to our district than choicing out. That includes our e-Achieve, but total number is definitely a positive and a very large number. What is that number this year?
We have about 375 students for brick and mortar, and then we have another 780 to e-Achieve through open enrollment.
So from a programming perspective, I think we compete with really any district really well within the state, and I am proud of how we've built that up and how we've maintained those over the years.
Thank you. Mrs. Kozlowski.
Thank you. I just want to kind of highlight a comment that Mr. Como mentioned, and as a parent myself with 3 very active children, I absolutely have the empathy for all of the parents here who understand what it's like when we are their biggest advocate, and not only for their academics, but their extracurricular activities. And we have choices. We make choices for our students. If I talked about the numbers of hours we spent driving across the state, across multiple states for AAU practices for basketball for my little basketball player who's 5'3", the beauty of this is that this district and the state offers parents choices. That is different than, I think, when we grew up, and I think it's really something to recognize and highlight that we are giving parents options to make choices that fit their family, their needs. And those choices do have consequences depending on what that is, because we believe and want the best for our kids. And one of the things that I do really love about our district is the wide, vast choices we have in not only what school you go to. We have some amazing charter programs, but we also have great programs that I'm proud of, and I think that is very warranted for our families to recognize that we offer a lot of solutions for, a specific family to make and decide what's best for them.
Thank you. Anyone else like to share thoughts or questions regarding this petition? All right, I do appreciate everyone who spoke. I appreciate the effort that went into pulling all of this information together. I appreciate the administration for preparing the data for us so that we can look at this holistically. I will just add that I do understand what it feels like to live in an area of the school district of Waukesha where you can see schools that your children don't go to. And I think we offer amazing programs in our district. And I think knowing the diversity of students in our district and our ability to serve all of them and to serve them well is a positive thing. Every district has things that we're working on. Every district has challenges that we're facing. Irregular school district boundaries seem to be a thing of the state of Wisconsin and probably a lot of others. And there's a whole lot of history about how we got those irregular boundaries, but Waukesha in particular, given its size and given its breadth, we touch so many communities. We have 6 state representatives that represent constituents in our district. So I do understand that. I understand the complexity of that, and I understand for parents who contemplate that regularly what that feels like. And I appreciate everyone who brought their personal stories and took the time to share all of that with us tonight, because we are here to listen to that. And Mr. Como?
Yeah, no matter where the boundaries are drawn, you have boundaries. You know, some states have gone to county-wide school districts, essentially. Well, you know, there's still going to be someone living in that county right across the borderline who will be closer to a school in another district. And that's just how borders work.
And I think, as we all know, transportation, whether it's parents driving, kids transporting themselves, or buses transporting children, is complicated and time-consuming. Mr. Montijo?
Thank you. I've been debating in my head whether or not I want to bring this up, but I'd be remiss if I didn't, and I don't mean this negatively or insultingly at all. There was a comment made during the presentation where you had the district scorecards up between Elmbrook and Waukesha, and the comment was made that there are demographic reasons for the difference in the test scores. And I believe you when you state that this is not a statement on diversity. I believe every statement that was made that was not focused on that. So, but I can't let that slip by, because then what else were you talking about? Socioeconomic diversity. And I don't think it's any less insulting. Students in our district, and students in general, and human beings, and young people especially, learn things from people from all different types of backgrounds, whether it's a difference in their race, culture, skin color, or socioeconomic background. To have those students in your classroom is a benefit, because you get to learn how it's like to realize when our students show up in the classroom, it's not a level playing field. They're coming from homes that are maybe vastly different than ours or yours, but they still have to learn from the same teachers and the same instruction and the same curriculum. And maybe the students who are not in that situation can learn some empathy and some patience and some graciousness by having those students in their classroom. So So I know it wasn't meant to be insulting. I know it wasn't focused on the racial or cultural. But the only other conclusion I can make, and maybe I'm missing something, is it's socioeconomic. There is a difference between Elmbrook and there's a difference between Waukesha. I see it as a plus, as an opportunity. I hope others do as well. I just didn't want to let that slip by. So that's all.
Any other comments? Okay, thank you. All right, so I'd like to again review the decision, the alternative decisions that we have in front of us. One would be to deny the request for transfer of the territory described in the petition. The other would be to grant the request for transfer of the territory described in the petition. At this time, I would entertain a motion and ask if a motion is made that you read the entire motion for the record. Mrs. Kozlowski.
I motion to move to deny the request for transfer of the territories listed in the petition identified as Black Forest Knoll and Summit Lawn Estate subdivisions, that the reorganization requested in the attached petition filed on January 6, 2023, to detach territories as described in said petition from the School District of Waukesha and to attach to the Elmbrook School District be denied on the grounds specified in Statute 117.115, Wisconsin statutes, and further that said petitions be dismissed.
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Zenobia. All right, I do want to clarify what the vote then means based on that motion. So based on the motion to deny the detachment request, a yes vote means that you do not support the detachment request. And a no vote would mean that you do support the request to detach. I'm going to read that again when Sue hands out the vote. So the motion was to deny the detachment request. A vote of yes means that you agree that you do not support the detachment request, and you would be agreeing to deny. That's a yes vote. A no vote means that you support the request to detach. And I'm going to read that again once everybody has their ballot in front of them. So the motion on the ballot in front of you is to deny the request in the petition from Black Forest Knoll, Summit Lawn Estates, and the outlot of the Shire. The motion is to deny. Selecting yes means you do not support the detachment request. Selecting no means that you do support the detachment request. And please don't forget to sign your ballot.
The motion to deny has been approved.
Thank you. All right, as part of the process, a motion is now needed to adopt a resolution authorizing the issuance of an order of denial.
I move to adopt the resolution authorizing the issuance of an order of Black Forest Knoll and Summit Lawn Estates subdivision as described in the attached denial. Did I say that correct?
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Como, thank you. Ms. Ettinger, would you please take the roll call?
Markel Moore,
Aye.
Joseph Como,
Aye.
Corey Montiel,
Aye.
Anthony Zenobia,
Aye.
Karen Robertson,
Aye.
Carrie Kozlowski,
Aye.
Patrick McCaffrey.
Aye.
Kelly Piasek.
Aye. Resolution passes 8-0. Before the board members leave tonight, signatures are required as part of that resolution process, so a clipboard with the appropriate forms will be passed around and should be returned to Sue when completed. That completes the hearing for tonight. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.